Tung da dang da dung da ding tao tung da dung tang to. Tung da ding tang tung da tao tao tung da ding tang to. Tung da tao tang tung da tao tung da dung tang tung. Tung da dang tang tung da dang tung di ding ding tung da ding dang da dung. Tung da ding dang da dung. Tung da ding dang dang da dung dang da dung da brang.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alessio Antoniolli. I'm the director of Gasworks in London and the Triangle Network, which is, as the word says, a network of organizations working together as a support system for each other, for artists, and for their public. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce to you Lippi and Mahbub, co-founders of the Britto Arts Trust in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and Matthias from ZKU in Berlin in Germany. I will let them introduce themselves, as I'm sure they'll do a much better job than what I'm doing at the moment. But before I start, I wanted to say that people can post questions in the YouTube chat, which we will address at the end of the conversation. Also, if people want to watch this conversation in German, there is currently another live stream on the Documenta 15 YouTube page that has German dubbing. And of course, any questions, anytime, let us know. I think we could start immediately and go and talk to our amazing people, Mahbub and Lippi and Matthias. And I think the title of this is the 6th episode of the Lumbung context, and its title, as I was saying, Prototypes for Belonging. And I think in terms of thinking about belonging, let's thinking where we start from and what our context is. So I wanted to invite both of you to talk a little bit about what was the need for your existence, why you've decided to set up. Maybe we could start with Britto, Lippi and Mahbub. Maybe tell us a little bit about how Britto started and what it was addressing, why you're doing what you've been doing for almost 20 years now, and then we can hear from ZKU after.
We are 20 years old.
That's it. I thought it was, if not close, yeah, on the dot almost. Yeah.
Yeah, this May, and we are already 20 years old. Anyway, when we started, of course, we were very young. You can see from us now, and that time actually we were like the whole art scenario in Bangladesh was a bit different than now. Of course, it should be. And for the young people like us, we did platform. And there were a few galleries in the city, especially in Dhaka. Outside Dhaka, there was nothing. And there was this Shilpakala Academy, which is a government entity, and then they have their own agenda. I think that's all. And then there were a few like institutions, academy, for educational academy, and we came out of one of them, the largest one, the biggest one in Dhaka University. And then during our student life, we just found that there is a need of a space that we were missing, frankly. So luckily, like we got to know some kind of like artisan spaces outside Bangladesh by the time, and then we did not at the beginning we did not think about a proper registered kind of organization. Of course, because that was, we thought that not our job, because it would be too much responsibility to take if we want to be an artist. Then, finally we had to take it, and we were somehow, like, it was kind of coincidence that we, when we thought about it, that time we got to know Triangle Network and Pooja Sud, of course, from Delhi, um, who was who was as part of Triangle Network, um, was responsible to set up some um, kind of organization platforms. Um, so that's how we met Pooja as well, and then we got connected to Triangle, and then finally we ended up with this platform, a registered one, very unusual for that time. That was kind of first ever registered um, artist-run platform in Bangladesh. So we were 6 people um, who were the co-founders of Britto that time. So still 4 of us are still working, and then 2 more trustees joined later. So there are members. This is not a permanent structure. It's like um, they are here for 2 years, and then so that's how we started. But it was kind of like, because we found that there is no studio for the artist. Artists cannot afford that in Dhaka. No selling of artworks, no commercial um, kind of benefit, and also no other opportunities, connections. So we kind of tried to make that connection on our own way, and then you know after Bito started, it was easier for us because we are already connected with a larger network by the time. So that's how we started.
And Lippi, I remember, because I'm lucky to have really followed the development of Britto over the last 20 years that you being so active. I remember the early conversations where when both you, Mahbub, and all the others member was talking so much about the fact that there was formal education that was provided by the universities, and then commercial or institutional galleries, but there wasn't really a space where artists could be together in a very informal way and learn from one another. And I also remember in the early conversations, Mahbub thinking, "Oh, one of the things that we need to do is just bring new ideas, new techniques, new methods in Bangladesh, because this is something that we are very few of us are able to go outside and have these experiences." And there was a sense of responsibility. I remember Mahbub almost saying that, we feel that we are responsible to share what we're learning with our community, and that's in a sense how Britto really very quickly started to have local roots, and everything seemed to develop from there. Am I bringing back any
Yeah,
memories for
yeah.
you?
It became an alternative educational institution, not institution, but a platform. Because
Yeah,
our, uh, the whole education that we also went through, which is really very conventional, and it's like
yeah.
still, they're doing the same thing. But only few of us, we were practicing a bit differently. So we were really longing for an alternative platform. All
Hmm.
this like-minded. Maybe you want to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, Alessio, this is the actual fact. So it's nothing about to establish a platform or organization. It's more, kind of space we needed to be together, because we
Right.
all went through the institutional process, and that are really colonial educational method and the very conservative. Still now they are very conservative. Still they don't introduce the different, the medium, like, the people are not practicing other medium. They're so much with the particular medium. Even I don't mind about the medium limitation, but I feel, whatever they do, they should have a conceptual. They should be clear about the concept, the language of the work, and the energy they have to deliver, because it's a great chance to practice in that way, to in a strong way, because we don't have a market, so we are not depending on buyer or the kind of collector, because all the buyer has kind of agenda. They always have their own taste, because they've grown up in a way, in the society. But we came from different society, different background. So we are always, expecting that the artist should take a, big challenge through their, the work and the language. It doesn't matter the medium, but we are also missing kind of medium you can express more. You can come to people very closely, like, the like a new medium or video or like installation, or going out of the, the box, like in the city life, to meet with the very root level people, because there's a lot of, the knowledge are flooded, and we are so much with the institution and the academic format. So that is kind of, if we talk about the alternative education, there is the way to learn so much, like, technique wise, the materials wise, like, people can use the local materials and, express their ideas. So that is, like, the kind of energy we are, hoping during that time, missing that, because, and we also wanted to make a bridge, because we are very much isolated from, after coming out from the institute, all the, the people that just scattered, they feel like a hopeless, because there's no other platform. And as Lipi mentioned, there's a few platforms that are very conventional gallery, but that is also very limited. So that Britto, I think it's a we give a little bite to other, to share to other, and this is kind of, the idea we are expressing and sharing the other.
I
has
think that's
grown.
really. I think that's. Were you going to say anything, something else, Lippy?
So I said that thought process of, like, making this, building this platform or building this
Yeah.
network, sharing a space, that has grown over these 20 years of journey, that you can see.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But it's also interesting that, the minute that you come out of those institutional settings, the way in which knowledge is shared, exchanged, and how then communities of artists, but also communities of people around artists can start forming in a much more organic way. Because Lippy, Mahbub, rather, you said, that this sort of institutional colonial structures that sort of seem to kind of keep a separation between art and life, or certainly put the visual arts into a platform that feels really disconnected from communities, whether they're communities of artists or also communities of people that experience art, is something that you've worked really hard in the last 20 years to develop, and you've done a fantastic job. And it just seemed that the reason for your success is that you really managed to address a specific need of artists and of people that want to experience art, or sort of like, yeah, or make art, or be part of that sort of dialogue. So to me, it's an extraordinary work. And I want to bring in Matthias now to see whether you feel that some of the introductions, some of the elements that that Britto, were able to develop from very, very early whether they resonate with how ZKU was developed.
It resonates a lot, and there's many things that I can sort of relate to, especially when you talk about how you want to sort of get across the division of art and life. I think this was a huge motivation in, especially in the beginning of our work. Maybe if I just may contextualize a little bit, sort of where we're as an artist collective are coming from. It's sort of the post-unification Berlin, late 90s, early 0 years, where you would have a lot of space there for arts to flourish and to develop. And it was really an extraordinary time of experimentation with public space and space in general. So new art forms could come from this. And we started sort of as a collective because we realized as artists that we are not interested in exhibiting in actually boring galleries with, also what Lepi and Mabou been saying, the agendas of gallerists and collectors, and sort of being there producing for their needs. We were really interested in our, in social questions and political questions. So we were asking ourselves, which is the best forum to display and discuss these questions. And we thought it's the public space, and Berlin's post-unification Berlin had so much of that. So that was a huge reason and motivation for us to start as a collective in the first place. And we sort of developed a series of works over 10 years. And slowly we could feel in Berlin the sort of spatial market getting more tense. People moving to Berlin, developers were coming to Berlin, and gradually these free spaces were taken over by rather commercial spaces or public infrastructures. And pretty normal development, I guess. So we had to start thinking like how we're going to deal with that. And this is how sort of the whole ZKU story started, because we then thought, okay, we now need to find a space which is more sustainable and which for us as an artist collective to work from as sort of a base station. And that's how we got across this cargo station in a public tender. And then we luckily, over a really complicated process of 3 years, were able to secure that space with a 40-year lease. And this was a huge game changer for us, like as a collective, because we weren't working in various public spaces anymore. We suddenly had one fixed public space. So that, of course, changes our perspective on how we want to approach it as artists. And so we started developing a concept that sort of brings together the local community to us and our interest, of course, in art discourse. And these words are sometimes very separated from one another. So we were thinking, okay, let's try to find a way to bring these worlds together, our local community world, and with people that might, not sometimes have had the opportunities to work in the arts field or be familiar with specific discourses that are huge in the arts world. So we're like, how can we bridge this? And over these last 10 years, we then developed a lot of formats to bring these things together. But what essentially stayed our essence was, how can we bring together, and this is our starting point, arts and life? How can we bring this together? And that's basically why at the end of the day we started ZKU and started developing these different formats.
And it's actually, it's in your name. It's the Center for Art and Urbanism. So, from the very beginning, this idea of art and urbanism and how it works sounds like something. It was basically inscribed into what your work was going to develop. Was it always going to be then around the idea of urbanism and how art can relate to the neighborhood or to the context in which you were set up?
Yeah, definitely. Like urbanism to us, of course, is a shell for a lot of things. It can be like research classically happening in the humanities, social geography, but it also means, everyday stories, everyday lives. That's also in our understanding what urbanism is about. A specific coming together, a mindset which is about tolerance. And so these things are, what is, for us at least, meant when we say urbanism. Of course, starting off with the word center for, of course, is like a huge exaggeration. One really has to say, because we just started, how we're going to know whether this is going to be a center for something. But you also need to sometimes start.
It's good to have a vision. It's good to have a vision, but it's nice to hear of the of urbanism as infrastructure, but also people that kind of inhabit the space. And just hearing you both talk, and we were talking about what resonates with one another. I mean, having seen, having been around Dhaka and Berlin, they couldn't be more different places. For they're such different cities, and yet in terms of how an artist collective can operate, that there are so many meeting points. And so ZKU has also been around, am I right to say, around 20 years now? So almost the sort of lifespan of Britto, is that correct?
ZKU itself, no, but the collective behind ZKU, yes. So the collective exists since 2006, so we're getting close to the 20 years.
You're getting close, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wonder
ZKU,
how,
yeah,
picking up on that, and it could be, if you want to maybe say a few words, and then we go to Lipi Mabu. But how do you feel that in the time that you've been active, the situation has changed? Because Berlin is a city that is changing really fast, or it has changed very fast, like Dhaka actually. But maybe do you feel that what ZKU was set up to do in 2006 or the early 2000s is still there's still a need, and there's still a reason, or has it changed? How do you kind of look back and see transformation in what you've done?
Clearly the city has changed massively over the last 10 years. As we had an increase in, say, rents going up massively. The city has been getting much more international, which is a good effect of the last 10 years. But the overall assumption that we started from, I think, is still valid: to connect local practice with global discourse, to us still feels very relevant. We still feel there are not that so many arts institutions that seriously try to connect to the local and the everyday life. We still feel this is very important, but the way that we do this has to change, and is constantly changing, because of course the people that we're talking to are constantly changing. This new people move into town, the technologies change, the way that people communicate change. So of course we as an institution need to adapt to that in order to still achieve what we want to achieve, this connection of everyday life in art.
Yeah. And maybe we can, I would love to hear from Lipi Mahbub about this, because 20 years is a long time as an artist collective and as a space to exist and to continue to evolve. And I wonder whether you have a sense of, the evolution over the last 20 years, and what is it that you did then that perhaps isn't necessary now, and what is the situation? How is Britto still so connected to life in Dhaka? I don't know if I can hear you. Are you guys? I can't. We might have a. Oh.
Yeah, we just.
Yep.
Right.
Unmute, sorry. Yeah, Matthias, like Berlin expanding like anything. So far, we've been there. Maybe 15 years ago, right?
Berlin?
Berlin.
No, few years ago.
Fewer. Okay.
5 years ago.
But before we've been to Cologne in 2000, so we saw, how the artists are activating and how the energy are, happening. And in Bangladesh, when we started actually our career started in early 90s. So we found how the global politics are changing and how it is influencing to our politics and our, our political things are changing. Like after 90s, the city expanding like anything, because after military government we got the democracy, and democracy, I don't feel like a democracy should be like that, no, doing things here and there and whatever they want, they are doing. So that is, that's like, happening in our city. The city flooded with the houses and building, a lot of building. So in that sense, like, if we talk about the 20 years of Beto, we feel it's a very short time. And if we think about the changes, we see the how city are changing, that the economy are changing, and the industrialization are and expanding like anything, and then the people rights are going to different direction. But in art field, like Britto, we do many things repeatedly, but that repetition has a kind of the movement, kind of like a, because the learning process what we are following, like if we talk about the 1 square mile or Prantiker Pakitijon, these are all related to the community, urban people or villagers or people from border zone or ethnic community. So every time we're going back to understand ourselves. I mean, if just going back and seeing how far where we come, we go, but still we found that maybe we were going back, maybe not in front. So that is kind of situation we are facing because of the economical structure and the art scene. There's many artists are coming out there. We are practicing a lot of different way. The event, if some artists, some organization organize some event, at least they can get some artist who does really interesting work. That is happening, no doubt. But the the way we were thinking to have the society and the bondage of the society, and then the urbanization, the city, how should be expanded. There's a lot of building happening. There's no gym, no place for play, no place for hangout, no place for older citizen. So these are like make us somehow very slow, and to come up with a very utopian friend circle to cultivate our knowledge and sharing our knowledge. But we found it should expand a lot. We couldn't do that much, but we are hoping and we're trying to pursue the masses to the people to different way.
And that's an interesting point, really, because again, over the last 20 years, you now have a permanent space, which goes back to what Mabubio was saying. That the city, as a sort of an urban development or as a sort of master plan, doesn't have these spaces for people to gather so much. There's no gyms, there's no places for people to meet, etc. And Britto, having seen it many times over the years, but also all the outputs that you do, because you're very active on social medias, Britto always seems to be a place where people gather. It has this sort of nomadic life. It goes around the city through the 1 square miles or many other projects, but it also has a place that it can call home. where then, all of these ideas or all of these people can come together. And I think that that's been a huge achievement for an artist collective to have this permanent space, because it gives you a base from which to then move out. But and I'm curious that you guys chose to have that base in a shopping center. And I think that this is particularly interesting within the context of Dhaka. So maybe could you tell us a little bit more about why the shopping center, and what does the Britto space includes? Because again, that's also very telling. When you found the space, it wasn't just a vitrine into the world; it was a place to inhabit, make, and spend time. So maybe if you tell us a little bit about what Britto's space looks like and why it's where it is.
Actually, in 2005, 4-5, when the Britto was very young organization, that time we thought about because we have seen a lot of South Asian um, like groups or platforms or collectives. They don't last for a long time because of maybe they don't sustain. So that's kind of traditionally happening in this part of the world. Then we thought about how much we are giving our time and hard work into it, and we want to sustain. We don't want to give up. So what we decided, luckily we had this Ford Foundation money for the South Asian Network for Art, which is including all our South Asian partners. And we applied with our proposal also, and then we succeeded. And that we received the money for 6 years. That is unusual. And Triangle also worked behind the whole process, especially Alessio, you and Robert. And that time we decided, okay, because before that it was really hard to find fund. Bangladesh don't have any funding agencies. There is no government fund or anything. So what should we do? We cannot spend our own money into it because we are not rich people. We are also struggling artists that time. So we decided to save the money from our salaries and everything. So we took all the responsibilities, like all the Britto trustee members. We decided that we will take all the responsibilities, not paying anyone. It's like coming, working, and having food and going back. That's it. But saving the salaries and saving the money from design or other administrative works or other things. And within 6-7 years, we found that we have saved actually a lot of money. So we kind of fixed deposit, make that kind of fixed deposit arrangement with the bank, and that was also growing some more money from the interest of the bank. That's how we decided to buy a space. So Robert Lauder helped from himself, and then I think Arts Collaborative actually came up with an amount that was we are really grateful about, because that was not their agenda, but they helped. And then we had we also get some money, and then Vito had that amount. Then we decided, okay, we were checking all the buildings where we can find an ideal space for Britto. But people would not think that is isolated or they are not welcoming here. So we wanted to welcome everyone here. And then suddenly, there were few options, but suddenly we found this very ugly building from outside. But if you come inside, even the ground floor, what Alessio was mentioning over and over, that ground floor is like all these medicine shops and groceries, Photoshop and all these things, like photocopiers,
computer
yeah,
compose.
or a small fashion room or something. or the lots of other things. Like it's a crazy place downstairs. Then you go up and you come. There's like office spaces, and then you come to Britto. You feel like okay, it's your home.
So I can add one thing with this, like actually the whole land taken by builders and the all the corporates. So there is no place to make a nest. So we are the bird looking for a home. So we end up that space, and we made our home. If you get in, as Lipi mentioned, with this building, and if you get into our space, you will feel the energy. That is actually we converted the space to the energy. So
That was the maybe the first thing that people loved about Britto, because during that time there was no idea about having a social kitchen inside an organization.
in the
But
gallery space or public space.
like a studio space or public space or in a gallery space. But we made that because we all love food and drink and dance and music. So that happened. So if anybody can come and bring their they can make the food there. There is all this essential utensils and everything ready for you. So that's how we made it more comfortable for everyone. And then afterwards we bought one space first. Then afterwards we bought another space just next to it, which is like half of the space that we are planning to convert an archive actually, because we need the archive um, more than anything else right now. Because in Bangladesh, we don't have a museum, art museum or anything. So we thought about and no archive at all. So things are I would say just disappearing. Even the artists, the older artists who are very famous in Bangladesh, they are, I don't think many of the new generation artists know their names. So that's another sad part of the country. So we last 2 years we have been working on it, and we have got Art South Asia project who helped us for last year to build up this archive. So we're in a process of that archive. So we are actually converting that space as an archive, or more like a living room kind of space where people can come, they can get the information. So right now we're working on Britto's archive, but afterwards we will work on Bangladesh artists. So that's the thing. And one thing is best for this space is pretty close to the all this educational institution in Dhaka. Like the Dhaka University is very close by. It's like walking distance. The museum is very close by. Both institutes all like 5 minutes walk from here. British Council is
And that's
very close by also.
But you have to cross the river because there's a big road. If you cross that river, you will go to the elite place. And if you are other side of the river, you are like cheapest place.
Even
Not
our
expensive.
state, even our state, Alessio, the road we are on, like it is, we call it Green Road. So the other side of the opposite side of our building is Dhanmundi. So if we buy anything from that side,
it will cost like
double.
More than double.
So the two sides have two different.
Yeah. It depends on which side of the road you are.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, for me, I always thought that, this idea of being in a shopping center, being in the center of activities, and art being another element of social activities was such an important place. And I also think that what you've done with Britto, because it's, it's also a beautiful gallery with a nice window and it's looking very professional. But the minute that you get in there, you have the gallery, but you also have the domestic setting. So it's not like just a place to go and see. It's also a place to go and be, which is so important, and it really kind of creates an environment that it's conducive for conversations rather than just to kind of go and passively somehow kind of absorb things. And going to ZKU now, I think, on a very, very different scale, because I was in ZKU not that long ago, and it's huge, but it still has that sort of quality, which I would imagine is what you wanted, to kind of have a space where activities, seeing, experiencing, thinking kind of happened. Maybe tell us a little bit about the your space in Berlin.
Yeah, uh, what is, I think, particular about ZKU is we've over all these years been trying to create an atmosphere that really welcomes people also not coming from the arts field to feel at home in our space, and not to feel a boundary of, I don't know, not being parts of the art scene. And I hope at least that this we've been able to sort of maintain this over the last 10 years. We have, in a way, developed real skills, or we had to develop these skills really, because I remember when we started, it was really reaching out to the neighborhood audience with like art related events was very difficult. We would always have our, you know, hipster audience, and so we really started developing these things. Like here you see a picture of Gütermarkt, which is where artists are sort of offering services to our local community. So we asked the artists are residing in our residency, do you have, you know, something that you can offer to our neighborhood? And we created a whole market from that, which is the Gütermarkt, or another format where we try to create a format which, I personally don't like football, but I know a lot of people in Germany love this public viewing stuff. So we used that as sort of a trick to get people into our house and showing publicly showing some international games. But before, after, and in between, we'd have a really critical and sharply curated program. So we would, you know, reach out to an audience which would normally not be confronted with these, you know, sometimes difficult questions when you're talking about, say, you know, urban transformation in Brazil during the Football World Cup in Brazil, or civil society in Russia during the Football World Cup in Russia. So, you know, we would suddenly confront people with some topics that, you know, they come for entertainment and they wouldn't like it in the beginning, but then over the time we sort of somehow educated also our audience that they can always expect something unusual from the things that we're offering, and that are easy to access in the, you know, in the beginning, and then, you know, it gets more complex and more complicated, and you really have to, you know, work while you're at ZQ in a good way. So that's, I think, the spirit that we're trying to, you know, bring across, and that we are also now trying to spread also to other places, the experiences that we've made in ZKU in developing public spaces that are accessible, and developing community-based centers which are, you know, also interesting and challenging on the one side, and on the other side have enough to offer so really everyone feels welcome. I think that's really what we're trying to balance out with the work that we're doing, not only at ZKU, but also, you know, the Haus der Statistik project, which we started in 2016, or other projects in the city, which remind me actually, like going, you know, because Britto is located in a shopping mall, and this is I think is such a cool move to actually go to where an audience is that is so maybe not in the first place interested in arts, but that might, you know, be shown a different world, and offered some alternatives to just, you know, your commercial use that you would find in a shopping mall, which I find really interesting. And it's very similar to what we've been trying to do at Haus der Statistik at Alexanderplatz in Berlin, which is very centrally located, and the area there is fully commercialized. It's basically been developed for tourist use over the last 10 years. And we've been trying to, in that same manner, to go into this commercial center and, you know, try to rebuild a sense of community among not just tourists, but also people who are still living there. And I find this is really interesting. I think this is something that really brings Britto and us together in what we want to achieve.
And the space that you have is multifunctioning, because it's a residency space, it's an exhibition space, it's studios, it's gatherings, it's bars or club or whatever, and you're also you're in the process now of you're refurbishing also to kind of do more with it. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because will it be ready for the the summer, or what's your plan? What are you doing?
Well, thanks for asking, Alessio. Big nightmares.
Refurbishing jobs are always a dream or nightmare rather than a dream, but yeah, they're worth it
But
in the
I'll
end.
tell you about my nightmares. Happy to do so. Thanks for the therapy session here. And yeah, right. I mean, the first, let's say the center of our activity is the artist residency. So we have 14 studios, and we've, over the last 10 years of our existence, been hosting more than, I guess now, 800 artists in the residency, which for us is just so incredibly, enriching, having all these different perspectives from all over the world coming to us. The other space that you've been mentioning is sort of our so-called communal space, which is called Gemeinraum. It used to be the storage of the cargo station. And this, to us, is the hub where the artist residencies activities and the activities from the neighborhood come together. It's sort of the bridge, like the physical bridge of local practice and the sort of artistic and global discourse happening in the house. And we noticed that we actually we have so much, let's say, demand from our neighborhood and also from the artists who want to exhibit more, or the neighborhood wants to be doing more workshops in our space, that we came up with the idea of expanding our building a little bit. And this is what we're doing right now. And it actually also was the starting point for one of our Documenta projects, taking off our roof, which there is a really beautiful wooden roof on top of this communal hub building. And we took it off. We actually built a boat from it, which will go to Documenta, but you will see that when we're there. And now we're building a new roof on top, 2 layers, which are going to be for community activities, more like smaller workshops. And on top, there'll be an urban stage. So we really call it an urban stage because we want to, you can actually see it from the circular line, which goes around Berlin, the S-Bahn. And so we have around 120,000 visitors every day going by for 10 seconds. And we want to reach out to that audience for 10 seconds with the activities happening on that platform, on this urban stage that you can then see from the S-Bahn as you're going by. And this is sort of a new way for us to communicate, a way to reach out to other audiences, and also to create a space where our neighborhood can also start talking to the world, sort of as a kind of stage. So our neighborhood, in a way, is the backstage, and then our audience is going by in the circular line.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of interesting.
It's terrible, the whole construction site, as you can imagine. In these times, to be building is just not a good idea. But yeah, we're in the middle of it.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. I can imagine that. Yeah, when you're doing it, it is a nightmare, but they always end up being worth it. Once you see the results of all the hard work. But talking about this sort of way of being embedded in the culture of the place, maybe, and you were hinting a little bit at the project that ZKU is doing for Documenta. I wonder whether Lipia Mahbub could tell us a little bit about that, the project that you are currently developing for Documenta, because I think you have a short video that you want to share with us, if I'm right.
This from one project only, Alessio.
Okay.
We are doing actually altogether. I think if we divided the projects into mediums, or the way we have done it, so it's like, I think altogether six different fragments. So one is a huge mural that we did, that the process, the process of that one, the starting point of that one, actually, at the initial stage when we were just making the collage out of this, all this research material that we had. So that one is in this video. But we are actually working on food politics. So this is all about food.
Food politics, you say? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, food politics. So the mural is on 7 different films related to food, war, famine, and all this. Like, we had a lot of political um, ups and downs in this part of the world. So that are most of the films had that kind of, not exactly the direct conversation, but the scenario of that time, of the outcome of the war or something, the partition. So that we have done. That is not finished yet. We have to finish it in Documenta. So we are bringing 10 people, 10 artists for that one. And that we worked with cinema banner painters and rickshaw painters and contemporary artists. So it's a big team that worked for that one. Then we're making an object market. It's like a super shop in one part, and the other part has a local bazaar that we experience in our villages. So these two parts will have around like 2,500 objects, small objects, which are food objects, and artists worked with ceramic and brick, metal, some other materials. Yeah. So this we are showcasing at the Documenta Halle, inside the Halle. And we are making an organic garden outside the Halle, which we call Palan in Bangla. And in the middle of that one, we are having a paghor, which is like a social kitchen. These are all made out of bamboo, and we have made all these structures and sent already there in castle. And we need to just set up them there. So this garden will be created also. We are germinating right now with, in collaboration with one organic garden in Castle, Fuldao. And then this in this paghor or social kitchen, we are inviting actually 100 nationalities to cook and tell stories or memorize the food for 100 days. And at the same time, because we in Bangladesh, even if you go through the villages, even now, you would find that most people don't have the living room. Even I, in my hometown, we did not have. That is a luxury to have a living room. So the living room is considered the paghor, like the social kitchen, is actually considered as the living room where the whole family would meet, talk, and then eat and decide or share things. So that's why we are inviting people. And if we don't get 100 nationalities, we are also inviting all our lumbung members and artists to join. So a lot of people are already, said yes to us. So that will be very fantastic, because then, while you are missing all your ingredients or something, you are going to tell that story, or you are going to make something that your grandmother or mom did, but you are trying hard to get the same taste there. So that kind of stories we're collecting,
Even
documenting also the whole
like
thing.
immigrant people, when they immigrant of one place to another place, they always carrying their belonging, and that belonging size is not that much, which they cannot carry, but they're carrying the whole memory, intact memory with their mind. So that, and then taste, and the whatever
They're
they
missing.
they feel, or the missing, so they carry that thing. And that is they are going to.
So at the same time,
share
it was
this.
not about only cooking. We are inviting people to activate over there, maybe performances or reciting poetry or doing something or making a meeting or anything. So that is also part of this Pakhor. And as part of the Pakhor, as an extended project that you have shown an image just right now, just while we are talking. That's also we did 4 Paghur projects in Dhaka, so that was fantastic also. Those were actually done by the artist. So you know that a lot of artists they love to cook, so we invited artists to cook. So yeah, the last one happened in our place, which was like huge festival. It was like a wrap up evening for the documentary work. And then the important part of this is like Alessio, that we have done a project called Prantike Prakitojan. We have visited like lots of ethnic communities in countryside where like they're so remote area, they didn't have electricity, running water, or any space to sleep. No, so we usually brought the artist over there and then slept on the under the kind of like outside the house or in a temple or in the school or wherever you have a space or the veranda
or lumbung.
or lumbung, like a where they
rice,
store their rices, that kind of rice barn. And then you have to eat their food as well. So that kind of that project we have been doing since 2009. So we thought that we will revisit the 7 different locations again for Documenta, and we revisited, we documented it properly, because there are lots of socio-political crises in those areas. Even the environmental issues that we don't look at the mainstream people, because they are all ethnic communities and they're almost like live in the borderline of India and Bangladesh. So this time, after 12 years, when we were traveling, 10 years, we found that they have electricity, they have mobile phone now, and their culture is changed. But we try to capture the most of the part that we wanted to, even their cultural programs or theaters or something that almost disappeared from the life because of the financial crisis or many other things. But then we are making 3 films and projecting them in Documenta Hale again in one room. They have a film room there next to the cafe. So it's a huge projection of 3 films at the same time. And we are also, capturing the photographs of 1 year journey or this revisit projects. So that those photographs is almost like more than 100 photographs actually. We're showing in another space where we are also putting another film of this 1 year journey. So these are all going like next to each other, and we are also publishing 3 books. So one is like 20 years of Britto. Alessio, you guest work and triangle also helped us for that, but its main support is coming from Goethe Institute through Documenta 15. We are really grateful about that, because you know that how we have struggled to publish this book from 10 years to 12 years to 15 years then 20 years. But this is, I think, the appropriate time. So we will be launching the book actually in September in Documenta exhibition days.
And Documenta also supported.
Yeah, and we have 2 authors for that book. One is Rahila Mohab, the one from UK, and then other one is Shantan Machuboka from Kolkata. These 2 friends, they know Britto very well. So Stadel is on board. Stadel is publishing this book. So, and then we are like having 2 more books. One is from this journey, 1 year journey. We gave a grant to a young researcher who is Indadul Kopu, who is actually doing this book at the Lumbung Press. So it's more like a doing by learning. So and it's like a workshop where he has to do that book before Documenta. And then after this, like 100-day journey, we will have all this documentation from our social kitchen, and we are going to take the interviews and all, and then afterwards we are publishing another book. So,
And
So we're really
like, you
going
know,
to get a slice. We're going to get a slice of
sorry.
Britto in Castle. We're going to get a slice of Britto
and
in Castle for
Yeah, there
during
is
the
one more
summer.
project that I missed. Just to extend our mural at Documenta Halle, we are actually working with color cubes from Castle. They are the graffiti studio, and we are working together. And we are also doing huge graffiti outside Documenta Halle in the city. So there will be, I think, one big graffiti and then some small graffitis.
and you know, the as we mentioned, to revisiting or going back, you know, again and again, like, you know, from 2009 till now, we actually found very interesting topics there. You know, we work in the forest, and while we are capturing that forest, we found all the trees are very young. So that image giving, you know, how it's treated, the forest, how the forest is treated. And then when we went to you know, the some minefield, like a, you know, there's an open minefield, illegal, it's happening, and then after few years we found it's become a lake. And then we saw one minefield almost done, government stopped to, you know, digging. So these are quite interesting thought we got. Even in the coastal area, if you see the you know, in the coastal area there's a forest, and it's really interesting to know that how the trees is you know, fighting with the nature. It's like, you know, the first tree is a frontline fighter, it's die and lying on the beach or seashore and trying to protect they become a vertical and protecting the other tree. You know, these are a lot of interesting narration we are coming up with the whole project, even as film also, like, you know,
Yeah,
the
also this,
colonial
like,
depiction, like, you know, the feminine 43,
and not only capturing all these things, but also we were like stopping by, sneaking actually in the kitchens of those ethnic villages where we can get the recipe and how they are making the food. And we always had a feast afterwards for the villages. So, there were like lots of.
But there is something really important, and I guess, you know, it goes back to the whole essence of ZKU and Britto, and you just described it really well. This idea of maintaining the connection and going back to people and places and being really embedded locally, because you're able not just to kind of bring in new ideas, but be there as things evolve, as the life of the neighborhood or life of a particular community. That in the case of Britto, you know, you say you've been going back to these villages since 2009, and it's something that kind of establishes a connection that isn't sort of like, here's the Britto project. It's almost like, here's Britto's life, and it's sort of
yeah.
enmeshed with the life of these people. And I would imagine, Matthias, that this is the way in which ZKU is, it's continuously evolving. And you know, you were talking about how people come to you, and sometimes they come to you for 10 seconds on their way somewhere else, but what you're doing is just be part of their life. And this is something that I guess is featuring into your projects for Documenta, but also where you're going in the future of ZKU. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we'll be looking at the whole of Documenta, it's going to be so different from what we have seen in all the Documentas before, because as Alessio, you were saying, it's not about placing a work ready to go, basically ready to consume in somewhere in Kassel. It's really about allowing an audience to engage and allowing for a process to unfold while Documenta is happening. I think this is really it's an experiment, and I think it's really important because the notion of art that all the collectives have is really about not, consumable, ready to go fancy art objects, but sincere involvement in our societies, in our communities, and the exchange and mutual learning, openness, and developing work from there, or not even work, just being with people and coming up with new ideas or being critical about stuff. It's really about creating a different mindset, and that's something that will happen in Documenta. I'm really curious how this is going to work out with the expectations, of course, that are there towards Documenta. And that's also what we're trying with the boat project, that which is all about community involvement in achieving something which is maybe almost impossible. So what we're doing is we're taking this roof, which we turned into a boat, to Kassel without the use of fossil fuel. So you need to have people and energy from people to do that. It doesn't work if an individual does that. You really need to have the collective energy for that. And we don't even know if the boat's gonna arrive. So it's an experiment which relies on the process working or not working. We can also fail. That's fine. It's also a learning in failing. And I think that's what really unites all of the collectives. And I hear also, what Britto is planning to do is really about taking their practice of community building, of engagement with community, and taking narratives from that into a different context. This is going to be amazing. I mean, there's another project where we're trying to take the idea of community even further to the level of engaging with non-human agents. So we're working with local beekeepers, like 15 local beekeepers from Kassel, and we've created this parliament of beings where humans and bees actually come together and have a system of governance together. So we're and also very open to the development of it and the process. So we're really, all of the collectives and Documenta are, doing this really amazing. It's almost like a fair of different ways of working with communities. And I'm really so curious how this is going to come out and what's going to happen. It's going to be exciting, I guess.
It's going to be exciting, but it's also it's what you're saying. You're using practices that you're very familiar with, because as artists run spaces or people that work with community, you just almost have to surrender control of certain things, especially if you're trying to get a boat to the other side of Germany, or whether you're just working with in people's living rooms. There's an idea of coming together, but you're making, I don't know how to say, but it's not so much, it doesn't sound like a curatorial project, or it sounds like an artist project that then people host. And I think the word hosting as a way of kind of welcoming somebody into your space, welcoming their practices, and then and collectively working together in order to create another layer of practices, is something that seems to be embedded in the way in which you, as an organization, as a group of artists, as a group of people, you both, ZKU and Britto, have rooted your own way of working, for the collective. And it's interesting, I guess. I mean, we're coming up for time. We don't have much time, but I'm curious about how spaces like yours, who are sort of platforms, you've used the word platform instead of the word institutions, both of you have, but how the last 2 years that have been such a unprecedented time have been, and how you have, as institutions, have coped, because, or rather as platforms, you have coped. Because I remember calling Lippi a few months into the pandemic, for instance, and saying, and asking, how is Britto doing? How are you guys doing? How are you managing the lockdown? And Lippi almost laughed at me and saying, we don't have time to worry about the pandemic because people need to eat. And the fact that Europe is all in lockdown means that so many people here have no job. They've lost their job. They lost their ability to eat. And as artists, we've started a program, which was this program of this edible gardens that you guys have done on rooftops and with communities. And it just kind of goes back to something that, institutions across Europe or whatever in different parts of the world, we were so worried about how do we survive, how do we manage this, how do we manage that. But it's only through that deep connections with the context and with the people around you that you've put all of that aside. Lippi Mabu, maybe you want to say something more about it, and actually thought, okay, how can we use our practices as artists, our practices as people to work in the community to support people like practically in this crazy time. And then you came up with these edible, was it edible gardens, Lippi?
Yeah,
Or did it,
zero waste
or
food
maybe,
art.
yeah.
Zero waste food
So,
art.
and this is something that you've been in, and in a sense it remains at the core. We talked about sharing food, sharing ways of growing food,
It
becoming
was, yeah.
aware of the surround. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So it was zero waste food art, and at the beginning, actually in March, when we knew that we were going through this thing, before that, no one cared. Everybody thought that it's in China. But anyway, when it came to you, you just realized that this is happening in your country as well. So we got actually a lot of phone calls from many artists, and they were kind of lost, and they said that how the life would go on, and we don't know how to deal with the whole thing. Then Mahbub and I were already like into because we have this new house and studio, so we were trying to grow something. So we thought about like, okay, let's do a project which will the core part of it like growing and then sharing and no waste method. You cannot waste anything, and then creating art out of it, because in the end of the day you are artist, so you need something to make for yourself also. So sorry.
Intellectual practice.
Yeah.
Engage with.
Engage with the intellectual practice and all.
Mm.
So we invited many. Some of them could not join. Some of them had other things. But finally, we ended up with like 16 projects, 14 artists, and then 2 collectives. And they were all over in Bangladesh. And one project was done by one artist in America. So everyone was going through the same situation. So some of the artists, they were in their villages because they cannot afford the rent of the house. So that happened, and then we also luckily got some fund that time. All of a sudden, it was like kind of bless for us, so that we could give them that amount. And these 16 projects actually included a huge amount of people in it. Even like not only the communities, not only the neighbors, especially I would say the elderly family members who were completely like upset or lost in this whole lockdown system.
Mm.
So whatever people had, like some of them had their own land, some of them had their veranda or rooftop, or so they started cultivating things, growing things. And some people didn't have anything, so what they did projects for the children, slum children next to their house, maybe making cookies which are shaped in different animals or birds, and then distributing them to the slum for 1 month or something. Then one artist was trying to make the fermented food and trying to give it to the neighbors. The another artist who is actually what it calls like a sound.
There's in one district there is a brothel, and in that brothel there is a the daycare center, children daycare center, and that daycare center, the children are coming and getting food from there. For the pandemic, it's totally stopped, and one puppet maker artist, he has a kind of connection with that institute. So he planned to buy milk
And sugar.
and sugar
There were like 70 kids
to
altogether.
share, with them. So we contribute 1 month support, and he also arrange another 2 months support. So, and he also collect the Tetra Pak from the milk, and then he has planned to make a puppet with that.
Yeah,
materials.
big puppet with that material and play for those children. So that kind of things were happening, and there were like a lot of extended projects actually. Communities were
Yeah.
involved. Yeah, so many people were involved. It's like a very large ecosystem grown that time. So that was our project during the pandemic. It went
And
for more than
kept you super busy, yeah, because that
yeah,
was that.
super busy and alive. That actually took us to Documenta.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
because Adi was also curious about that project, so we started conversation from there.
yeah.
Then it
No, because
yeah.
it really describes the whole methodology for Britto over the last 20 years. I mean, it's only through your type of practice that this sort of project can, from one day to the next exist, and then actually can then attract funding, because it has that sort of genuine connection, and it has a longevity as well, because of course what you're doing creatively is sharing practices for sustainability, and paying attention of what's around us in order to kind of uh, make use of it. How was the last 2 years for ZKU in terms of activities and support system?
There were, let's say, two main challenges. Like, one challenge, of course, was we're running an international residency. People are coming from all over
Yes,
the world. You can imagine that's a
yes,
huge mess when it comes to like quarantine. Can I travel at all? So that created a huge extra sort of organizational uh, load. But actually,
yeah,
artists are often very flexible with coping with these challenges. So after maybe 2 months after our first lockdown in Germany, all the artists coming back and working in the residency. But we
mm,
also experienced, of course, something which I found really interesting, because it got attention in the more general public: the importance of public space,
mhm,
which suddenly, oh yeah, we can't meet inside, let's meet outside. Oh, so good that we do have public spaces. And essentially, suddenly everyone recognized and realized how important that is. And during the
yes,
pandemic, we, of course, this is our turf. This is where we're, very familiar working with. And so we did various things to create infrastructures which were more outside. So at other project, Haus der Statistik, we bought a abandoned bumper car structure and used that as sort of a shelter from rain. and as a meeting point for people. And it's we call it Musterhaus, which is sort of a blueprint house for public meetings. So we created this infrastructure spontaneously. We created another infrastructure. We built a stage. Ah, yeah, here it is, the Musterhaus der Statistik. So it is located at this Haus der Statistik that we're also working on. And yeah, it became a really important hub for different communities to meet outdoors, which also took reference to the GDR modernism in the background that you can see here. And yeah, it became a real meeting point and an iconic also space for people to meet. And yeah, that was really, I mean, the pandemic situation was something that we could cope with quite well because of our familiarity with working in public space.
Of course.
So yeah, it in the beginning was a shock, of course, like for many, but then we were able to cope. But also, and one really has to say that because we do have all the privileges that we have, and it wasn't about asking yourself how we're going to feed. This question was not in the air, and I just feel that I need to mention this because it's a different situation, and it's of course so much easier for us,
Of course. We have very little time left, and we can go on talking forever. But I feel that if we were to do that, then we will have to bring in the food because that's what we've been talking about for an hour and a half. So we might need to stop. But I wonder whether there are any questions from the public. I know that Kasia is helping us with that. But in the meantime, I wanted to invite you, Matthias, or Lipia Mahbub, if there's anything that we feel or that you feel that hasn't sort of been addressed that you want to add, please feel free.
Perhaps you can show the video clip of
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
And
Well, that
is
looks
the
amazing.
location? Sorry.
Very secure.
And the location is that in your shopping mall?
No, this is our studio. Britto is
That's your
not that big.
Okay, I've not been to your space. Okay, but your studio is nice.
It's huge,
Thank
isn't
you.
it? It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Come visit me.
Well, if we don't have any questions from the public, maybe we can close to this and with this rather, and I want to thank Lippi, Mahbub, and Matthias so much for this conversation. It's been wonderful, and these are two organizations that I've had the privilege to work with, so it's wonderful to be able to talk about the work that you've done, and I hope everybody is as impressed and amazed by what you're doing as I am. I also wanted to thank Kasha and Oliver for supporting us during this talk. Also, huge thanks to Undine Schaffer for the sign interpreter, and Lydia and Astrid Gies, the simultaneous translator into German, for their fantastic work, because it can't be easy doing, having all these people talking about all these different things. Of course, I also want to thank Rowan Rupa and all the organizers of Documenta 15 for this opportunity. And then a couple of reminders, and this video will be made available online soon, both in English and German. And the next episode in this series will take place on Sunday, the 6th of June. And information and all the details about that will be available on Documenta 15 website and all the various social media channels. So thank you all very much. It's been great to talk to you all, and I look forward to seeing you all at Documenta.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you
Bye,
very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Bye bye, Matthias, Ali.
Alessio, bye bye.
Alessio.
Matthias, bye bye.
We'll see each other very soon. I'm looking forward.
See you
Yes.
Real
Dum daga ding dang daga daga dum daga ding dang 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 daga daga dum dang 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 daga daga dum daga daga brang.